welcome everyone at home to this edition of Caring for Caregivers Mental Health Program. On behalf of Mickey's Miracles, our board of directors, our medical advisory board, and all the families that we're so honored to be in relationship with and to advocate for, we welcome you. We have a very special guest today with us, someone who I haven't met personally until today, but I've had conversations with, and who was one of the early families that worked with Mickey's Miracles and has since then been so incredibly vulnerable and strong and impressive and transparent in the journey of being a parent to a medically complex child and some of the challenges that accompany, that opportunity, that blessing, really. And part of our recognition with the Caring for Caregivers Mental Health Program, even though it extends to families beyond pediatric epilepsy, is the thread of how mental health can be challenged from different perspectives. And it can change depending on the season of the journey you're in. The pediatric epilepsy journey, other neurological condition journeys, they're not linear, and they have ups and downs. They have high points and low points. And in the meantime, the primary caregivers have to live, have to manage relationships, have to manage work, and of course, provide an environment that is loving, supportive, nurturing, and really attentive to a child. And this program is a recognition that people like Hilary deserve a voice, deserve a community that is supportive, that erases the shame and or stigma of talking about mental health issues, and that openly admits that it's okay not to be okay sometimes. And we really need to thank our sponsors who were really so supportive when we brought this to them and understood the gap in the community with respect to mental health and mental health resources, and connecting parents and caregivers to mental health resources and creating a community around that conversation. So thank you to Norellis, thank you to Jazz Pharmaceuticals. Your support has been incredibly instrumental in providing a solution for a big gap in neurology and in pediatric care for caregivers. And we honor you for being a partner for us in these conversations. And with that, I just want to say, thank you to our guest. Hilary Haris has been part of the Mickey's Miracles family since the beginning, I think back to 2015 or 16. Hilary, is that correct?
Yes, that is correct. 2015.
Yeah. And her beautiful daughter, Jane, has been part of that journey. And we've had a chance to witness Hilary's journey and Jane's journey. And, one of the things that has impressed me about Hilary is her positivity. And also, when there's room for something other than positivity, Hilary is very open about that too. And I think transparency and vulnerability are really connective when we talk about mental health issues. And it gives, I think, other people permission and inspiration even to face challenges in a way that are forthcoming, in a way that are honest, and in a way that really values the sometimes often struggle that happens for caregivers. And I've been so impressed with your podcast before. I've been so impressed with your writing. And I reached out to you in particular because I think your perspective as a mom and your perspective as a mom who gets this would be very valuable to share and very beneficial to the families that are sitting at home watching this. So Hilary, thank you. It's such an honor to finally meet you after so many years of connecting. And I've been a fan from afar, so I look forward to this conversation.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm very honored. Mickey's Miracles really helped save Jane's life. So that's a connection that, Christy and the Grease family and us will have forever. And Christy and everything Mickey's Miracles does runs at such a high capacity level that I always felt like, gosh, what do I have to offer this, organization that such advocacy you guys put out. But so to be asked to be a part of this is such a huge deal. And I feel like just in the way that you guys are, your mission is to get the early stages of pediatric epilepsy is to get them help. I feel like my mission is to help the parent kind of lift up their head and lift up their spirits and lift up their eyes after that diagnosis. So I feel like I'm kind of the next step of the journey gal, not so much the medical side, but the soul health side, because my story is so linked to just experiencing trauma and honestly even like clinically diagnosed PTSD through that epilepsy diagnosis of our baby girl. And I didn't even know I was experiencing trauma until about 4 years into our journey when I had a nervous breakdown. I was only 29 and I had it. I was like completely unaware of what was going on in my body. But after going to counseling, they told me, Hilary, you are grieving and you have PTSD. And I'm like, what? I just had no idea, because during the diagnosis part, when Jane was only a year old, you are just thrown into survival mode as a parent, whether it's autism diagnosis, epilepsy diagnosis, whatever diagnosis it is. We have expectations as parents of what our kid is going to look like, of what they're going to act like, of what they're going to fulfill in their life. When those expectations aren't met, and then we're just told, okay, now accept it and survive, it can be really daunting, and it kind of can alter everything we thought. It can be very disappointing is the word I like to focus on, because I think we obviously have our children, and what we stuff into our brains is, no, this is good, this is a gift, and we kind of tell ourselves, no, I like it this way, no, it was meant to be this way, I like it. And we shut off the part that, let's acknowledge that this was a disappointment. It's still a disappointment to my husband and I. We process in our own different ways, but Jane is 9 now. So we've done tons of processing and we're not done yet, but we have our own disappointments that we carry, that, he won't be able to walk her down the aisle, or we won't see her in ballet class. And we've gone on to have 2 other children, which is amazing. We have 3 girls. And so we have 9, 7, and 5 now. And we're watching our younger 2 do things and live life experiences that Jane won't live. And there's just, little checkpoints and milestones along the way that kind of ignite that disappointment again. And we don't live in a place of sadness or sorrow, but like you said, when negative emotions do come up, we do not ignore them, because one of I think the main components that led me to I just call it a nervous breakdown, but I guess it was a nervous system collapse. I don't know what you would call it. One of the main components that led me to that was not processing the negative emotion. It was just living like a warrior, living like a soldier, and having to do it day in and day out. Because a lot of times we feel like we don't have a choice as special needs parents. What other choice do we have? We have to be up in the night with our kiddos. We have to be going to appointments, and but I just remember a very specific instance. There was and I don't, no disrespect to medical professionals, because they saved Jane's life and we owe them our life. But I had one medical professional when we were told that Jane would need a G tube. I was pregnant with our second daughter, and I started to cry in the clinician's office, and the doctor told me, "Oh, don't cry." Like, no, it's fine, don't cry. And I remember that, and I was like, okay, I won't cry. But I look back on myself with so much compassion. I was like, why wasn't I allowed to acknowledge the sadness? Why wasn't I allowed to acknowledge the disappointment? So I really took our message of Jane's life, and I just was filled with faith and hope. And I'm going to use our story for good, but I wasn't processing our own unmet expectations and our own disappointment. So a huge part of the mental health, because, everyone we're talking to, I'm assuming you have a diagnosis that it's going to be a long time. It's not going to be healed tomorrow. It's not like a medication is going to solve it overnight. I know even with Mickey, she's a miracle story, but there's still repercussions of her diagnosis that the Grease family has to live out, so we all have to live out these long-term effects of what has happened to our kids. So we have to be able to process accordingly over and over again. And I think the number one thing that triggers a breakdown is when we stuff those emotions, and when we stuff it down, and when we say, no, it's fine, no, it's fine, no, it's fine. It's a real big red flag to me when a family says, oh, we don't need any help. or I'm good. I don't need it. I'm okay. And I'm like, whoa, wave the flag. This person needs help because we all are filled, whether we have a special needs kiddo or not, we're all filled with life experiences, emotional things that we deal with every day. We call it the emotional cup. My husband and I see marriage counselors who we love, and they call it the emotional cup. And so whatever's stuffing in the cup is going to flow out of you. So I don't care who you are. If you're not continually processing what's in the cup, it's going to come out sooner or later. And my husband and I are pastors at a very large church, and we speak on stage a lot. And we speak in front of thousands. And I always joke, I'm like, I want to process and get this out of my cup when I'm alone at home and not on stage in front of 1,000 people and have it all come out in a panic attack or an anger outburst, because it will come out. So my number one tip to every new mom who comes to me with a diagnosis, which I have the privilege now of just being connected with a lot of new moms that have received the epilepsy diagnosis, my number one tip is, have you grieved yet? Or just giving them permission to grieve. That's one thing that I really wish even just social workers, and I think there's a lack in the medical field of people walking with parents through the grief process, because I think they're really good about tackling the diagnosis and aiding them to health. But when it comes to the mental, emotional health, a lot of times it's just making sure you have the right physical resources, but it's not making sure we have the right emotional resources. At least that was our experience. So I always think about that a new mom needs or a new parent, new diagnosis, we need permission to grieve and not think that we're thinking less of our children by grieving what we expected. I don't love, just because I'm disappointed of the things that Jane will never do, that doesn't mean I love her any less. She still holds the gold medal in my heart. She's still the best thing that ever happened. She's the most beautiful princess in all the land. There's nobody better than her. But I'm still disappointed by all the things that happened early on in her life with her sickness. So we can acknowledge the sadness and the disappointment, but we can also be filled with gratitude at the same time. So it's holding space for both and not thinking that it has to be one or the other. I also see a lot of parents just kind of put on their like warrior mentality of like, oh no, we got this. And yeah, we don't need help. And just kind of, they don't know how to process the emotions. So they throw themselves completely into the role of caregiver, but they're not caring for themselves. And that's a big passion of mine, not just processing your emotions emotionally, but to give yourself 100% as caregiver long term is going to affect you. And I'm a huge proponent for the mind body connection. So the second thing after processing emotionally, which can be done through processing emotionally, could be done through trusted friends that you know, professional counselors. It can be your spouse. It can be a best friend. It can be just journaling and writing. I do all of the above, but those are some options. Even if you wanted to voice record yourself and just start verbally processing with yourself, and you could listen back to your voice recording and start picking up on maybe some deep grief triggers that are in there. These are all ways to just kind of empty that emotional cup. But the second thing to that would be the mind body connection, which I love talking about health, fitness, and people are like, oh, you're so healthy. And I'm like, we don't have a choice. This is if we want to be there for her long term, we have to treat today like we're building something long term. So every decision we make is a long term decision, and we allow ourselves, the fleeting pleasures of a glass of wine and, binging The Office on, it used to be on Netflix. We allow those things, but our day to day, we act seriously about building something long term, because just the emotional effects that exercise has on us is so positive. And we believe, what we put in our body greatly is connected to how we're dealing with things emotionally and mentally. So I've worked with a functional medicine practitioner, even just as I've gotten older. We have high highs and low lows with Jane, and we've got to make sure our energy is on point. And sometimes we overcomplicate it and we think like, man, I'm just in this depression, and we give into that and we're like, it'll never get better. And then hopelessness comes in and I'm never going to get any sleep. And I've worked with my functional medicine practitioner, and she's like, Hilary, you have a magnesium deficiency. So I'm literally taking a magnesium supplement and making sure I drink enough water. And it's like changing my life. It's magnesium. And your mind can so easily just be like, oh, we're alone and nobody understands. And this is it. You might just need to be taking the right vitamins and taking a walk every day, you know? And I think we think of health as like, well, I don't have time to be a CrossFit champion, or I don't have time to run a marathon, or I'm not going to, I don't want to be vegan. And it doesn't have to be all or nothing, but there's little simple things we can do in our day to make sure that, magnesium, zinc, those are all connected to our emotional health and wellness. So I highly encourage people, if they can, if you can't afford to get with a medical functional medicine practitioner, I prefer the holistic route. You can always meet with a doctor and get your labs drawn and just say, is there anything I'm deficient in? And that might actually be affecting your hormone imbalances, emotional imbalances. And we're a whole person. And I just like to remind people of that you're a whole person. So you can't just be 100% caregiver. You have to be someone who knows how to journal your emotions. You have to be someone who knows how to stay hydrated. I mean, you have to drink water. You deserve to eat a vegetable. You deserve to go on a day trip with your spouse. You deserve to look at the ocean, even if you only have 6 hours to do it. You're a whole person. So it's not fair to treat yourself like a machine and say, okay, this is what reality's dealt me, the reality that has been dealt to me. So I just have to do it. There's parts we have to do, but you get to choose, how much mental equity you give to each thing. And 20 minutes of mental health is going to enable you to be even that much better when you have to give 3 hours, to your child in the night or whatever it is. As I see it, it's just like making these small deposits into the bank, and you're not withdrawing out of an empty savings account. You're withdrawing from, oh, I was hydrated today. I did prioritize my sleep. I didn't drink alcohol this weekend. I did go on a walk today. And then when you are, woken up in the middle of the night for whatever reason, you have that much more in your savings account to withdraw from. So the processing emotionally, and then the physical component, I think, is my biggest advice to parents when it comes to mental emotional health.
Yeah, I love that, Hilary. And listening to you talk, it's hard to imagine that you went 4.5 years with PTSD without awareness of having PTSD. And that actually mirrors a conversation I've had with Christy, different specifics, but she'll admit that it wasn't until recently where she's given herself permission to really process some of this stuff, because she's been in warrior mode. And there were times that she and I will be talking, whether it's about a family, and recently about Mickey's spikes, overnight spikes that required new monitoring and a new treatment protocol. And they had the expectation that Mickey was working towards medicine freedom. Instead, got these spikes and needed a different medical protocol after the same one had been in effect for so many years. And she admitted, like, hey, this program has allowed me to give myself permission to process this stuff in a way I never would have processed it, and because she is so strong and she is so resilient and she is so get it done and take no for an and not take no for an answer and all those things, that even the CEO and visionary founder of Mickey's Miracles, had to take a pause and say, hey, this has affected my mental health. And just now am I going to, through these processes that allow me to be more healthy from a mental health perspective. And she's always been active and she's always eaten well and she's always exercised, but it's that intentionality, that is so important. So what I heard from you is give yourself permission to grieve,
Mhm.
Obviously, that's going to look different for everyone, depending on what they're grieving, what their expectation was, who they are, what their child is being challenged with, what the prognosis is. I mean, all of those things obviously factor in. So that grieving process is very unique to the person, I think.
Yeah.
Even, a couple, with the same child will have very different grieving processes and
Yes.
needs for grieving. And then
Yes.
secondly, be mindful of how your daily habits from a nutrition and movement perspective impact your mental health.
Right. Yeah.
And, it doesn't have to be all or nothing, but if you make daily deposits when it comes to the grieving process and or the nutrition and or the movement side of things, when you're challenged, you can come from a place of strength and reserve versus a
Yes.
place of grief and depletion.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I wanted to add to that. There's so much to say just on all of those topics about the way the spouses
Sure.
handle everything. My husband and I are just opposite, completely opposite. But also the other thing is after Jane was born, threw myself into exercise in an unhealthy way
Yeah.
because it was something I could control. And I felt out of control in my body and like I couldn't protect her. And so I threw myself into hit workouts and cardio, and because I could control that and I could see results and I could meet goals. And I thought, like, I'm just so BA, like, look at me go. Like, when I thought everything was taken from me, like, I'm getting it back. And then I had a nervous system collapse because my cortisol was just rising.
Right.
So
Yeah.
that's another thing. There's a difference between, like you said, we have to be coming and processing and acting in a place of wellness out of the right intentionality. It's not just about venting. It's not like venting your emotions, and it's not just about, get your 10,000 steps a day. It's do everything out of a place of mindfulness of what your body needs that day. So my friends always joke, they're like, you're the most self-aware person I know. I'm always telling them, like, oh, my blood sugar is low, and and then I got this text from a doctor and I need to process. And I'm like, you guys, I have no choice. If I don't process this ongoing, it will build up. And then, like I said, it'll all spill out later. So just like you said, small deposits every day, whether it's one conversation with my husband. Sometimes I'll just look at him and I'll say, I'm very disappointed that Jane XYZ. And he'll go like, I know. And I don't need him to say anything, but I just needed to verbally process that. And then we can move on our day. Cause as we stuff things, and then he knows, and I know if I'm having a bad morning, something unexpected, he's like, you want to go on a walk? Yes, I do. 20-minute walk. That's it. That I'm like, oh, wow, the sun is brighter. I feel like, yeah, like I said, one magnesium pill. And I'm like, well, I can do anything. It's just everyone thinks, well, if I can't do everything, I won't do anything. But that's just not how it is. Just the little things that your body may need, which, like you said, is specific to every person.
Yeah, I appreciate that so much. And there's so much that we can talk about in this first segment. And I'd love to invite you back so that we can go into more detail on some of those things. And I do know that you've prepared a journal prompt exercise.
Yes.
I know that as we were getting ready to welcome everyone, we talked about journaling, and I know that it's a part of your daily life. I journal not as often or consistent as I should, but when I do, I find it incredibly helpful. And
Mhm.
I find it most helpful for me personally, in connecting to gratitude.
Mhm.
And when I'm overly busy, I also find journaling helpful in helping quiet my mind. If I can put it
Yes.
on, if I can get it out, then
Yeah.
it doesn't get stuffed and doesn't create this restless, anxious energy in me.
Yep.
So I wonder. I mean, first I'm looking forward to this exercise, and I just wonder if you can make just a comment or two about how journaling impacts you and how you apply it in your life.
Yes. So I have evolved my journaling into blog writing, and I am actively working on a book too. I don't know what it will look like, but so my writing is kind of coming from the inside of me and out every day in different forms. Sometimes it's an Instagram post. I do my best, like I said, to really process with intention, and I don't want to go on social media and vent what I'm feeling. So I think the pages of our journal or a personal blog that you have is a great way to allow yourself to do the brain dumping, the really ugly, really scary, really honest thoughts, and not editing yourself, just putting it on there. No edits, no offenses. We come from a Christian community, and I think Christians are a lot of times afraid to say things about like offending God. And I'm like, I don't know if you can offend God. I think that you just need to allow yourself to brain dump it and say everything, knowing that you're accepted, you are loved, that we're all human, and that we have, if you're thinking that, I remember my best friend when we were in the ICU with Jane in the parent room with no windows. She said, what's your darkest thought right now? Tell me your darkest thought. And I said, and I was like kind of shocked by her boldness, but I said, my darkest thought is that Jane's going to die. And she was like, okay, you said it. And I'm like, that was so healthy. And that's what I talk about in my journal. I'm just like, I talk about what's going to happen when I'm 60, the real thing. So nobody's reading it. Say everything. And then I think the process of writing, you might start and be like, well, I don't know what to say. But if you allow yourself, set the timer 10 minutes, just keep writing until the emotions stop or the thoughts stop. And then as you write, it kind of unleashes. It's like you're opening the top of the cup, and then more comes out and more comes out and more comes out. So for me, it's like I said, a daily practice in many different forms, but just the form of writing itself in whatever way is really healthy for me. And then I can go to my husband, or I can go to social media with a clearer perspective and not out of a place of unhealth or, seeking attention or unproductive venting is kind of what I see that as. But I can do all that in the privacy and safety of journaling.
Yeah. So let's get into some of those prompts. I know you have some prompts for the caregiver at home, and I'm looking forward to them.
So the first one is just to brain dump. Set a timer. Maybe if you're just beginning at this, set the timer, I'd say, for 5 minutes. 10 minutes is kind of a long time. You'd be surprised how much you could write in the span of even 20 minutes. You could probably write a chapter of a book in 20 minutes, but 5 minutes, set the timer and force yourself to just go. And even if it's just not full coherent sentences, my journal's always never coherent sentences. And I consider myself a pretty good writer, but I mean, it's just like sadness or, bad. If it was just bad, period, whatever you're feeling, whatever's at the top of your brain, like you said, get the anxious energy out and just start going. But don't stop until the timer goes off, because you might cut yourself short and there's more in there that needs to be processed. And sometimes you'll be surprised of what comes out, and it wouldn't have come out if you hadn't set aside that chunk of time. But I think everyone just has 5 minutes, even right now, if you're listening, and just pause the video, start brain dumping and going, okay, there's a new medication we want to try. Start talking about that. This is what scares me about that. Start talking about that. Do we want to have more kids? Why am I afraid of having another child? Start talking about those things in your journal. The next thing is, I would list out in your journal, list of trusted people in your life who you can verbally process with. And these people, so you list them, whether it's a parent, a sibling, spouse, friend, a counselor that you know of, or maybe you want to seek counseling. Write down your next step and how you're going to find that counselor. I encourage you to just look through your insurance or your medical provider at first. Or even if you just download a counseling app, I know those exist now too. But write out the list of people that you're going to be vulnerable with, because I don't think you get emotional healing without vulnerability. So you need to know who those people are, and those people need to know who they are. So think about who it is, write them down. My people know who they are, and they know that they don't need to have answers from me. They just need to listen. I have a Marco Polo app. It's the communication video app, and my friends and I talk on there all day. It's a free app. And so if your person is, 20 states away, you can have the Marco Polo app together, and you can hop on. It's kind of like FaceTime, but you can hop on whenever you want and re-listen to it whenever you want. And it's video. And I verbally process to the safety of my best friend on the Marco Polo. She lives like a mile away, but we talk on the app. We talk on the app. 20 times a day. So write down those people and let them know, I need to be verbally processing. So would you be willing to be one of those people? And you don't have to do anything. You just have to listen. And if you have something to say, that's great, but please just listen to me. So we assume that like, oh, people know I need to talk. They're just not asking. But a lot of times our needs aren't met because we're not letting people know. They have no idea. People don't know what they don't know. So write down your top 2, top 3 people that you're going to be verbally processing with.
Yeah, and I also, if I just interrupt you just 1 second, the power in listening. I mean, there's a quote that I'm gonna butcher, but I'm gonna paraphrase, and it's basically, being listened to is the closest feeling there is to love.
Mm.
And I think that's one part of it. And the other part of it is, if you need something more than listening, to share that.
Yeah.
To share that, because again, people don't know. People generally want to be supportive, especially if they're on that kind of list and you prep them to be on that kind of list.
Mm-hmm.
So if it's something that's specific and you need more than listening,
Mm-hmm.
I encourage the folks at home to communicate that.
Absolutely.
And not walk away with, oh, I had an unexpressed expectation that I didn't communicate, and then got disappointed on top of, I didn't get the chance to get the support I need. Now I'm disappointed in a friend that's a trusted, source of comfort for me,
Totally. Yeah. No, that's very wise. And one thing my husband and I learned is we know when we need to prep each other with, I need you to listen with your head and I need you to listen with your heart. And so when I need answers, you can try to fix me when I tell you like, hey, I need you to listen with your head right now. What's your ideas about this? But when I need your heart, I just need you to say, man, that sucks. And I'm so sorry. And that's it. So, but letting people know, because a lot of times we don't know that. And then, yeah, it's exactly what you just said. We're disappointed by something they would have had no clue about. The last thing is I would like you to write down one health step that you can take just to be a more fuller, stronger person. So this can be, I'm going to buy a set of 8-pound weights, or I'm going to drink the prescribed amount of water for my life, or I'm going to add lemon and pink salt to my water to get my electrolytes, whatever it is, or I'm going to turn the TV off 20 minutes earlier than I usually do. Whatever, just super, I want you to keep it almost stupid simple, and where you're like, that's not a real health goal. It is. It really is. Those small things really add up. And when you start thinking every week, what other little tiny tweak can I make? Before you know it, you're going to bed an hour earlier, you're getting great sleep, you're on the right supplements, you're walking 5 miles a day. But if you make those small incremental steps, so I encourage you, what is your small step? So it can be the things you eat. It can be committing to the things that you're not going to buy and put in your house anymore. It can be committing to, your screen time, hydration, exercise, the amount of steps you want to get in every day, how long you're going to allow yourself to sit during the day. So what are those little steps? I'm going to do yoga once a week. I'm going to invite a friend for a walk. What, maybe I know a lot of people I know, especially women, sorry if you can hear that on the screen. A lot of women, they got to buy themselves the cute workout outfit to get them motivated to move their body. And this is totally off topic, so I apologize, Dario. No. But I am all about whatever you need to feel beautiful while you're caregiving, do that. So I honestly love it when Jane's drool cloths and bibs, they look aesthetically pleasing because it's a drool cloth, it's a bib, it's wiping up, emesis, it's wiping up drool. Yeah. Does it need to be? Yeah, it does, because there's a lot of things we do that are hard. But if you got a cute workout outfit on and you know that you lifted 8-pound weights that day, and then you have to lift someone out of a wheelchair, you can literally, this sounds so silly, but I have been there. It was the day before my birthday and Jane had thrown up get her in the wheelchair. I had to load her into our wheelchair van, and I looked down and I had worn really cute shoes. And I just looked down and I was like, I like these shoes. And it just made such a difference in your confidence, your demeanor. So don't try to just suffer through all this stuff. We're like, oh, I gotta drink my water, or I gotta get yourself a great pair of leggings, get yourself a cool water bottle, like make it to where you feel confident and you feel motivated to do something, you know? So
Get
that
yourself
was,
what you need, right? Get yourself what you need,
yeah,
and give yourself
yes,
permission to give yourself what you need. Right?
absolutely,
Because
absolutely. It's,
I think one
why
of the things that
can't
we
it be
see,
beautiful?
yeah, one of the things that we see is, you know, that guilt, right? Oh, I can't do this for myself. How could I? Because my child is going through X, Y, or Z, and or I can't because, you know, we have to do this or that. And the reality is you can if you
Mhm,
prioritize it, if you make it part of your daily practice, if you make those
mhm.
daily deposits, and to give yourself permission to draw strength from, you know, those daily opportunities, you know. So
Yes,
there's so much resonance, and we're going to invite you back, Hilary, because we're running short on
love
time,
to.
and I think there's a lot to unpack there. So I'd love to have you back and get into, you know, some of the more detailed conversation on, you know, some of these items. And for now, I just want to say thank you from my heart as someone who's been involved with Mickey's Miracles now for 4 years and has been part of Team Greece for the same amount of time and has had the honor of working with warriors like you and so many others that just exemplify beauty in every way, you know,
Mhm.
strength and resiliency and vulnerability and transparency and admitting that this is hard. And
Mhm.
there's a beauty in that that I think a lot of caregivers don't see because
Mhm.
they're putting on that brave face and they're putting on that warrior mask.
Yeah,
And when you let people see the pain you're in, and when you let people see that you need help, people connect to that in a different way. And you inspire
yeah.
other people, not just to give you support, but you give them permission to share as well.
Mhm.
And there's something so beautiful and so powerful and connective in that expression.
Mhm.
So thank you for leading by example. I want
Oh,
to thank the folks at home, obviously, for tuning in. And you know, this is for you. This is
mhm.
for the caregivers at home who we know don't have it easy day in and day out. In
Mhm.
fact, you have it probably quite hard. And this is our recognition and honoring of that journey.
Mhm.
And if you have a question, if you have a topic, if you have a comment, if you have any kind of constructive or even non-constructive criticism, you know, please share that with us. We're at mickey'smiracles.org. After this will live on our YouTube page and on mickey'smiracles.org. We invite you to look at the catalog of conversations like this that we've had on caring for caregivers. And as we close out, I want to say thank you, Hilary. You are an example of just everything that I think a parent needs to embody to be healthy in a situation that can be less than healthy sometimes.
Mhm. Thank
So
you.
I honor you for that. And I thank you for taking the time, for participating so presently and so fully, and for sharing some thoughts with our families at home. And with that, thank you to our community. And we'll see you on our next episode of Caring for Caregivers Mental Health Program. Thank you.